body at ease, breathing quiet, sentiment benevolent. Dharma friends, sitting still in vital silence, we practice eco-Buddhism together. The sound of the temple bell booms for all to cease from conflict. May the way of Buddha usher in the dawn of non-violent global village forever. Here is the after sound of the bell. Thunder of silence, light after Dharma rain. Om Amoka Airokana Maha Mudra Manipadma Chavala Pravataya
Please take a moment to straighten your mats and cushions, and then come stand facing the altar for chanting of the three refuges. So as we face the altar, bringing our hands palm to palm, and adjust your calm chang sincere heart. And we will first take refuge in Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, first in Sino-Korean, which is in keeping with our particular lineage, and the second time in English. So even if you do not know the words, see if you can throw your voice in with the sound so that you can have some direct experience of chanting. I go for refuge to the Buddha.
I go for refuge to the Buddha,
And resolve with all beings.
and resolve with all beings.
I will cultivate a heart of enlightenment.
I will cultivate a heart of enlightenment,
And realize the great way.
and realize the great way.
I go for refuge to the Dharma.
I go for refuge to the Dharma,
And resolve with all beings.
and resolve with all beings.
I will penetrate the teachings.
I will penetrate the teachings,
And uncover oceans of wisdom.
and uncover oceans of wisdom.
I go for refuge to the Sangha.
I go for refuge to the Sangha,
And resolve with all beings.
and resolve with all beings.
I will seek peace and happiness for the many.
I will seek peace and happiness for the many,
And transform this world into Buddha lands unimpeded.
and transform this world into Buddha lands unimpeded.
Please return to your places now for another shorter period of meditation, about 5 minutes. Please join me in some simple stretching. Bringing our awareness now into each movement. Testing. Wait, wow, is it? Can you hear me okay? Testing. Hello? Yeah, maybe the volume's just a little low today. Or maybe my voice is a little.
I can hear you pretty well.
Oh, okay. How's that? Is that better?
Well, good morning, everybody.
Good
My name is Jagwa. I'm one of the Dharma teachers here in Ann Arbor. It's nice to see all of you. I've had this kind of title for a talk kicking around in my head for several months, and I think it's actually probably a whole lifetime of talks. And so this is sort of the first draft, and it's called Perfection Without Perfectionism. And one of my few remaining vices, I guess it's a pretty short list, is Instagram. And I follow a bunch of accounts where they post different poems, like poem of the day kind of thing. And there's one that's been coming across these feeds a lot lately, so I thought it was very applicable. This is a poem by Molly Brodak from 2017. How Not to Be a Perfectionist. People are vivid and small and don't live very long. People are vivid and small and don't live very long. That's the whole poem. That could really be almost the whole talk. But I guess I should say a little bit more than that. I would say that I probably know more about perfectionism than I know about Buddhism, but I'm going to try to bring the two together because there's some interesting aspects of Buddhist teachings, enough to fill multiple books about the concept of perfection. And it's maybe not what we would associate with that word given our cultural context. So I want to bring in a little bit of that. But maybe just a brief story. So I was trying to remember when I first took the Buddhist precepts. So in our tradition, you study the basic moral teachings of Buddhism, and then you receive a Dharma name and you commit yourself to practicing this set of guidelines. We call that taking precepts. So we just had a group this summer that completed that process. So that's when I got my Dharma name. And it was in 2015. I had to search in my email because I can't remember. Luckily, my email goes back many years. And the ceremony that year was in Toronto. So a small group of us drove up to the temple in Toronto. It was my first time visiting there. And the night before the ceremony was kind of this party, which I wasn't expecting exactly. There was all this lovely food, and in the basement of the temple there is decorated in this really kind of hip way, like a little coffee shop, like thrifted sofas. And the priest there is a wonderful seamstress, so she's made quilts and different rugs and things. So it was kind of cool. And there was a band that performed reggae, and this guy was there in the band who someone told me used to play for the Harlem Globetrotters, which I'm not sure if that was the case, but he was very tall. And it was a little bit of a scene, like I kind of wasn't expecting this. And my husband and I did the process at the same time. We didn't really know anyone there. And so we were sitting, eating dinner at one of the communal tables with this older guy who I think was there kind of to support his son. I think they were from Toronto. And so we're eating, and he says, so you're doing this whole precept thing tomorrow. Why are you becoming a Buddhist? And I thought, well, that's a really good question. I should maybe have had a good answer for that by this point in the process. And I guess maybe it was the atmosphere or something, and I didn't really know anyone. And so my answer was pretty unguarded. And I said, well, the last few years, my personality started to feel kind of tight, like this straitjacket that I can't figure out how to get out of. And I started thinking, well, there has to be more to this experience of living than just getting tighter and smaller. I said, maybe that's what it's about for me. So he didn't really say much about that, just said, okay. And it wasn't until I guess he asked me that I realized, well, that was kind of what had drawn me to look for something else. And so maybe each of you have your own answer of like, well, why are you here? That's kind of what he was asking. What are you doing here? And maybe it's It's not the straitjacket feeling of your personality or your habits or something like that. It's your own version of that. But I think you kind of know what I'm talking about. And I think too, in that moment, when I was thinking back on it yesterday and kind of making notes for this talk, that was like a really sweet and tender moment, kind of that self-reflection of, why am I doing this? I've had many people who, since that time, who have asked me, Jagwa, like, why did you do this Dharma Guardian program? It's one of the training programs here. Why did you do the seminary program, which is our teacher training program? And do you think I should do it? And sometimes I would just say, well, if you feel like there's something pulling you to do it, then go see what that thing is. And I think that just that kind of setting forth is really important and something that we should honor, because you don't necessarily know when you're starting out where it's going to lead. But it's really important to honor that pull. And so I think that's what that question kind of elicited for me that night when thinking back on it. Around that same time, I think I did my first long meditation retreat here at the Ann Arbor Temple, which was probably about 3 or 4 days. And I had never had the experience of doing what we call an interview with the teacher. I didn't even really know what that was. And so we got to the first long sittings and people were being called upstairs to meet one-on-one with Taju Sunim. And I don't know that I really knew what was going on. I just knew what I was supposed to do because I was just going to do what everyone else was doing, right? And so the interview with the teacher is you just meet one-on-one, you do your practice, and then maybe you'll have some kind of dialogue. And I remember going in the room, the little meeting room, and closing the door. And I don't think I opened my eyes the entire time because I was so scared and I didn't know what to expect. Do you remember that?
No, but it's a typical,
Yeah, it's a typical story, yeah.
people expect that.
The tiger waiting for you behind the door. But I think in that retreat is when Haju had shared with us what we call the meditation formula. So this is a kind of a verse that is passed down from our teachers. And it goes, meditation is concentration. Concentration is oneness. Oneness is no self, no other. No self, no other is no birth, no death. No birth, no death is true suchness. And the qualities of true suchness: intimate, immediate, spontaneous, and obvious. And when I heard this,
We're not finished.
there's more?
Yeah,
Oh, I don't remember the last part.
the way Buddha is everything one.
Oh,
Everything one is the way Buddha.
yes, thank you. It's a good thing you're here.
It's sort of the ordinary.
Yeah. Those 4 words, though, really so struck me: intimate, immediate, spontaneous, and obvious. It felt like a magic spell or something. Like, okay, I recognize that. I think I've even experienced that. But at that moment, it was so far outside my grasp because of the kind of fear and the kind of staying small. But it was such an enticing, I felt like that was some kind of like cool water, that I was thirsty for. And so those words stuck in my mind for quite a while, and of course still do, after that first retreat. And I think it was that particular one where I came home after 4 days of a silent retreat, and I was making dinner and kind of like moving pots and pans around, and I accidentally clanged the lid of a heavy cast iron Dutch oven onto itself as I was putting it away, and it sounded like the temple bell. And I thought, how come I never noticed that before? You know, so my frame of reference had shifted a little bit. And I thought maybe some of maybe that's an immediate thing that I noticed. So it's sort of a little way of like reframing my attention in everyday life. And I was more open to this notion of true suchness. And I started thinking about it in the sense of over time becoming an antidote to some of these habits of perfectionism. And I think we should just spend a moment and think about, well, what is perfectionism? We all have probably described someone we know as, man, they're a real control freak, right? Maybe you've said that about yourself even. Maybe people have said that about you. It gets kind of turned into this like identity. Well, I'm a perfectionist. I would have said that about myself a few years ago, for sure. Now I think I say I'm a recovering perfectionist. But really, I think at the heart of it, perfectionism is a series of habits that we do start to identify with because we're trying to meet some kind of need. And so it's not really about the way that we're expressing that, because we're not usually going around saying, man, I really feel kind of unsafe in my regular life. And if I don't get things just the way that I think they should be, then I just feel so in chaos that I can't function. You know, we don't really have that line of reasoning, but underneath the habit energy, there's some need that's trying to be expressed. And I think that's similar to other types of these habits that maybe we come to identify with. What's the need underneath that? And it was only through establishing a more regular meditation practice and working with Sangha and teachers that I felt like I had a little bit more capacity to really look at that need more deeply. Because before then, I just was going through the motions. And I could see, I could almost watch myself going through the motions, right? I remember Haju giving Dharma talks at the time about this notion of the one-trick pony, right? That's kind of a circus thing, right? Where you go and the pony can just do one trick. But I remember thinking, oh, I know what that's like. Like you come home and there's dirt on the floor because your husband didn't take his boots off, and you're like, what's this dirt on the floor? You know, that's kind of my one-trick pony. And in particular, there was one evening where we were cleaning up after dinner or something, and there was a big crumb on the floor. What's this crumb on the floor? And my husband just said, it looks like a common household crumb to me. And so I said, oh, yeah, I guess so. You know, it wasn't about the crumb, because I guess that's the point, right? It's about what's this force underneath, what's the force that's driving these habits? Until we can look at that a little bit more carefully and with great compassion, and also with a very clear perspective, then it's difficult to have the resilience, I guess, to stay through the desire to act out of the habit and to go back to what's the need that's not being met? How can I care for that need? How can I see that need more clearly instead of acting out? But a little bit of humor and a patient person in your life helps a lot too. So let me bring it back then to some of our Buddhist teachings. because we have this collection of teachings called the Six Perfections. These 2 books are about them. They're wonderful. And I'd like to read to you the version from our liturgy book about what the 6 perfections are. Maum talked about them a little bit last week as well. And really you could give a talk, many talks about each of them. But we'll talk about them just kind of in general. What are these teachings about? And what is the Buddhist idea of perfection? So the 6 paramitas, you can bring your hands palm to palm and listen in a formal way. 1, Dana Paramita. May I be generous and helpful. 2, Shila Paramita. May I be pure and virtuous. 3, Kashanti Paramita. May I be patient. May I be able to bear and forbear the wrongs of others. 4, Virya Paramita. May I be strenuous, energetic, and persevering. 5, Dhyana Paramita. May I practice meditation and attain concentration and oneness to serve all beings. 6, Prajna Paramita. May I gain wisdom and be able to give the benefit of my wisdom to others. So this word, paramita, we translate it as perfection. And I was doing a little bit of research, and another more kind of literal translation of this Sanskrit word is far-reaching attitude. A far-reaching attitude. These are sometimes also called trainings, aspirations. And in this wonderful book by Dale Wright, who's a Buddhist scholar, he refers to them as the thought of enlightenment. The thought of enlightenment. So if any of my fellow perfectionists out there heard this list of 6 things and thought, yes, someone just gave me the 6 rules I need, I can do this. That's not what it's about. It's not 6 new little straitjackets to put on and figure out how to be perfect. These are really about the names, sort of naming or putting characteristics around deep human potential that, when expressed skillfully and developed over a long time, is sort of the thought of enlightenment, becomes an enlightened person, or perhaps maybe better said, a person who is behaving in an awakened and enlightened way, a skillful way, a wholesome way. And so, like many of our Buddhist teachings, these are not really rules. These are sort of characteristics that we have to explore, come to know both firsthand, through readings that we might do about what the great teachers of old understood about these concepts, and then actually trying to put into practice what this looks like. And so I wanted to read just a brief bit from Dale Wright's book, because he has a wonderful explanation of sort of what these 6 perfections are about. The question my life presses upon me, whether I face it directly or not, is, how shall I live? As what kind of person? Sort of like that guy in Toronto who said, so what are you doing here? All of us face the task of constructing a life for ourselves, of shaping ourselves into certain kinds of people who will live lives of one kind or another, for better or worse. Some people undertake this task deliberately. They make choices in life in view of an image of the kind of person they would hope to become. From the early beginnings of their tradition, Buddhists have maintained that nothing is more important than developing the freedom implied in this activity of self-cultivation, of deliberately shaping the kind of life we will live. For Buddhists, this is the primary responsibility and opportunity that human beings have. It is, they say, our singular freedom, a freedom available to no other beings in this universe. And although circumstances beyond anyone's control will make very different possibilities available for different people, Buddhists have always recognized that the difference between those who assume the task of self-sculpting with imagination, integrity, and courage, and those who do not, is enormous, constituting in Buddhism the difference between enlightened ways of being in the world and unenlightened ways. And he goes on to talk a little bit about maybe the closest near concept in our popular culture that we might be familiar with, which is character. We talk about our character, developing our character. When I was a kid and I complained about having to take out the garbage, my dad would say, "It's good for your character." I didn't know what he was talking about. But Dale Wright talks about that this word character actually comes from ancient Latin and Greek roots for the word of what it means to stamp on a coin, this impression that you leave behind. And so it's the impression that we're making on ourselves through our activity, and it's the impression that we leave on other people in how that we interact with the world. And so the way he sums it up in something that I think is very practical and very helpful is that the 6 paramitas are about how to reach out to others and away from ourselves. And ourselves, he really means the small self, the protected self, the self that thinks it knows best, the self that's playing small. And the other kind of phrase that I have used as a training many times over the years since encountering it, I think it was actually in the first book of Zen teachings that I read maybe 20 years ago, was from the book Waking Up to What You Do, which I think is Charlotte Joko Beck. And that's a book about the precepts. But the phrase that she teaches in there is sort of this koan phrase, again, like true suchness, where it gives you a new way of turning toward a situation. And the phrase is, what serves life? What serves life in this situation? And I think that's another way of saying what Dale Wright is saying. How do I turn towards others and maybe less concerned for myself? What serves life in this situation? And I think too that maybe we hear about these big aspirational qualities, and it seems like we need to become a completely different person. Like, how could I ever do those things? And so I really appreciated, there's a dialogue in this book also about the 6 perfections. There's sometimes more than 6, by the way. Sometimes there's 10, but we just have 6 in our list here. This book has 10, by Robert Aitken, who's a North American Zen teacher. And each of his chapters is about each of these teachings. And then there's a recreated dialogue with him and his students. So I want to read you the one here because it kind of gets at this question of, well, is this about becoming a completely different person? How do I actually embody and realize some of these trainings? And he says, spoiler alert, it's not about that. So this is the student talking. I'm living with someone who is very perfectionistic and who is very ascetic. I suspect that the asceticism, sort of like maybe renunciation, comes from very deep feelings of unworthiness. And yet there is this ideal of asceticism and a simple life in Zen. I wonder if you would have anything to say about the possibility of helping someone else see their own perfection beyond their perfectionism. And the teacher responds, let me share a story about my teacher, Yamada Roshi. Have I told this before? If so, maybe it will be pertinent again. At one time, we were sharing students. I was teaching in his absence, and then he would come and lead sesshin, a Buddhist retreat. And speaking about one of the students, I said, this student may tend to be a little perfectionistic. He said, isn't it all right to want to be perfect? He caught me. We all want to be perfect. It's that drive of constantly making it better that makes us human and helps us to mature. The tendency to be perfectionistic is a quality, a character trait. Maybe it arises from insecurity, but it's something that's pretty well established by age 4. What we need to work with here is a character trait that can be expressed in a more positive way. In the same way, laziness becomes patience. Anger becomes a passion for justice. Asceticism becomes, I'm not sure what, but it certainly provides a wonderful example to the rest of us when it is matured as a trait. And the student responds, more time and energy for giving. Exactly, the simple life. Henry David Thoreau surely is a good example. There's a long process. You can be sure that your housemate, your partner, is working with this. Probably your partner knows clearly that other people think, I am too perfectionistic. Whereas there may be some resistance to this. At the same time, there is surely some acknowledgement that I could be more flexible than I am. So that consciousness is wearing away the rough edges to reveal the real jewel that is there, that particular individual's jewel. It may take more than one lifetime. The student responded, that's very helpful, not to see the perfectionism as an obstacle. The teacher says, that's the present manifestation of a character trait that can be very wonderful and save everybody. So here we have this recognition that it's not as if we can take all of our innate ways of being in the world and just kind of throw them away and replace them with something else that we think is going to be more like the stuff on that list, right? It's actually about doing that work with the material we've been given to hone and mature and to become the most skillful expression of the same habit energies that make me so judgmental, also make me so clear-seeing, so discerning. How do I know what to say in the right moment? I've been paying such close attention my whole life, looking for a mistake. But I could also use that same attention to see something very beautiful. So I think that's kind of what he's getting at in that particular piece. So before we open it up for a little bit of commentary, I have one more poem for you. I'm just going to read part of it because it's quite long. It's kind of a funny poem. And then we're going to do a little bit of a version of our own. So this poem is called How to Be Perfect. You hear it has a little bit of sense of humor. And this is by Ron Padgett, another contemporary poet. Eat an orange every morning. Be friendly. It will make you happy. Raise your pulse rate to 120 beats per minute for 20 straight minutes, 4 or 5 times a week, doing something you enjoy. Hope for everything, expect nothing. Take care of things close to home first. Straighten up your room before you save the world, then save the world. Know that the desire to be perfect is probably the veiled expression of another desire, to be loved perhaps, or not to die. Make eye contact with a tree. Be skeptical about all opinions, but try to see some value in each of them. Learn something every day. Be nice to people before they have a chance to behave badly. Don't stay angry about anything for more than a week, but don't forget what made you angry. Hold your anger out at arm's length and look at it as if it were a glass ball, then add it to your glass ball collection. Be loyal, wear comfortable shoes. Design your activities so that they show a pleasing balance and variety. Be kind to old people even when they are obnoxious. When you become old, be kind to young people. Do not throw your cane at them when they call you grandpa. They are your grandchildren. If you need help, ask for it. Plan your day so you never have to rush. Show your appreciation to people who do things for you, even if you have paid them, even if they do favors you don't want. Expect society to be defective, then weep when you find that it is far more defective than you imagined. When you borrow something, return it in even better condition. And then it goes on, and we see it, and we'll see if there's any good ones right at the end. It's quite long. Oh, here we go. Take out the trash, love life, use exact change. What I love about that poem, and maybe combined with the first one I read about how not to be a perfectionist, they're kind of in conversation with each other, is that in that long list, you hear the poet's unique kind of perspective on both the social message, that we've absorbed, and then their own personal point of view. And then in between the small self and this social self, there's like the glimmer of seeds of virtue, the beautiful little things that are the things to be cultivated, sort of like what we heard in that dialogue from Robert Aitken. So I wonder if you were to think for just a minute or two, what would be 3 things on your list of how to be perfect? And then we can talk about it. So just think about that. I'll ring the bell for a moment. So I'll share my list of 3, and then we can pass the mic if you would like to share yours. Please feel free. I think mine would be turn toward intimacy. Wear more sunscreen. Don't make a big deal out of common household crumbs. Okay.
You do get us thinking, Jacqueline.
I do get a what?
You do get us thinking.
Yes.
My 3 ways to be perfect would be to live with acceptance, to live with gratitude, and to follow Rule 63, which is don't take yourself so darn seriously.
I thought of have a plan, let go, be surprised.
Ah.
I guess mine would be practicing more patience, not withholding forgiveness, and being kind.
Come to planned events on time. Try to remember this lecture. And patience.
Um, be funny and be foolish and forget yourself sometimes.
I guess I thought of
Try to sincerely love yourself,
try to sincerely love others.
and really try to sincerely love your mom even when she's making you crazy.
I think that mine would be patient, questioning, and considerate. But what I mean by considerate is not just considerate of others, but I've always had a motto of be the person you needed. So you need to consider what things weren't met in your life and how to be that for other people, even if people can't give that to you now.
So mine are recognize when it hurts, ask for help, and don't force the third thing.
Don't force the third thing.
Simply be born, die simply, and in between eat cake.
Eat some cake. Okay, so one that I would offer
Is play with the cat, smile at my housemates, and invite Mara to tea. Enjoy the weeds in the garden. They're medicine. Enjoy the characters in the family. They're medicine. And enjoy the characters in the saga. Medicine, medicine, medicine.
Thank you, everyone. So now we have a group poem, which you can spend some time thinking about. I think that's all for the first draft of that talk. We'll probably come back around again. So let's end our service with the 4 great Bodhisattva vows, and then we'll have some announcements. So please repeat after me. All beings, one body.
All beings, one body.
I vow to liberate.
I vow to liberate.
Blind passions, one root.
blind passions one root.
I vow to terminate.
I vow to terminate.
Dharma gates, one mind.
Dharma gates, one mind.
I vow to penetrate.
I vow to penetrate.
The great way of Buddha.
The great way of Buddha.
I vow to realize.
I vow to realize.
And,
Would you like the mic?
thank you. Welcome to the temple. It's a nice Sunday in late summer with the heat down. Java, I didn't say exactly what my 3 were because I only came up with 2. There's one is to harmonize with what is because it's already perfect. And to make sure that other people know that you don't mind that they're not perfect. Let's see, so a lot of the same notes as last week. We're coming up on the fall schedule, and there are flyers out in the lobby which you can take with you. And you can also sign up for an email list if you haven't already. Let's see, we've got a few things in August coming. Let's see. I didn't want to write any notes on this because there are just a few, but this will be my own copy, I guess. Well, let me say what's coming up in September soon. After Labor Day weekend, we have yoga starting up on the following Tuesday, so that's September 5th. Then there's the Thursday after that is beginning of the meditation class, 6:30 to 8, as is yoga. And then I was going to ask if there is anything else anyone else could think of that is coming up that they'd like to announce.
Family service.
Family service, right. The second Sunday in September, coming back. As are, I think, 4 p.m. services. Yeah, and then that'll be in September too. After. Oh yeah. Did you want to say something?
Sure. So directly after this service next Sunday, August 27th, is a special annual service called Ulambana Day, which is to honor people we may have lost either to death or estrangement. There is some preparation involved with this special ritual, so if you're interested in participating, please talk to me afterward and I can talk with you about what to expect. But it will be from around noon till about 1:15 or so next weekend.
Thank you. And also today we have Recovery Dharma across the way in the historical temple. And Iljan will be leading that, I believe. Did you guys have any comments about that?
Other than all are invited? No, and my 3 words for that meeting would be stay sober, don't wake up hungover, and you can still have fun.
Yeah, sounds good. Then Haji has something.
A couple of things. First of all, there's garden work for 15 minutes after the service. We have numerous little projects, and thanks for showing up by the little girls starting the backyard after you. And the second is that Shobha mentioned, we do have training programs at this temple for people who are interested in both deepening their practice and also becoming these teachers, possibly in the future. There's many stages of that. If you're interested, you can talk to one of us who's been ordained or in Java. Also, you can look at our website. It's pretty much open.
Anyone else have any announcements?
Well, and I tell you now because the semester begins on 8th and 9th of September. So if you're interested, you need to do preparation before that.
Okay. Those are your 2? Those are your 2?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I think it's about the end of the service. We can do our 3 bows. And also I want to say thanks for being here. Thanks for chipping in, help, and it's always accepted your financial donations out in the fishbowl.
So we'll end the service with 3 formal bows facing the altar. If you could just take a moment to smooth out your mats and cushions and leave things as you found them, and then stand facing the altar.
Also, everyone, if you have a minute, the back rows of cushions can go.
No, we're leaving them.
Oh, it'll be, okay, good.